I am Dr. Jacob Larson, and this is Read, Write, and Cite, the channel where I teach you how to read, write, and cite for your college classes. In this video, I'm going to be explaining an assignment that I'm giving my students, but if you are not one of my students, this will also teach you a process for how to go about doing a reader response essay on your own. So no matter who you are, what situation you are, I hope that you find this video useful. Okay, so here we go. My students are currently getting ready to write a reader response essay. What is that? Well, if you do a quick search on the internet, you'll find an explanation that goes something like this. A reader response essay is less about what the text that you're reading and responding to is about as it is about what you have to say about it. What I ask my students to do is something that's a bit of a hybrid in between. This may feel a bit like a book report, for example. Maybe you wrote these sorts of essays growing up where your teacher asked you to kind of summarize what it was about, maybe say what you thought. That's the kind of essay I would encourage students to write in a reader response. In a purely theoretical sense, reader response is really just about you. I find that less beneficial for a student that's just learning how to write. So I try to do a bit of a hybrid. So here's our mock reader response essay writing prompt. Assuming you have an assigned text, and I'm going to talk about one that I'm giving my students. You take that and you're going to begin by summarizing it. And in your summary, you're going to say what the author's main point is and maybe some other important details or ideas that they have in their text. It's going to be at least 500 words long. And you're going to explain what you think about it. This is the response part of the essay. You're going to give your original insight, and this is where you really make this your own. Feel free to respond to the topic. My assignment has to do with race. I chose that because I thought that would be a topic that hopefully people have a lot to say about. And then you want to use examples from the text to support what you have to say. So you're not just giving your opinion, you're doing it in an academic way where you're saying, all right, this is what so-and-so said, this is what I think about that. And so you're grounding it in an academic process by saying, all right, so you're going to quote part of that, you're going to cite using MLA. This can include quotes, paraphrases, summaries. You're going to follow, include in-text citations or cited page, follow MLA formatting, and of course, you don't want to make mistakes. So that's the basic writing prompt. Whenever you start an essay, make sure you pay really close attention to the writing prompt the entire process. If you aren't doing that, it's very possible you could get off track. I've had this happen for students all the time. Maybe they don't even read the writing prompt. They just listen to what I said about it, and then they went and did it. And somewhere along the way, because it's not a short assignment, they got off track. Make sure you are paying really close attention the whole process. All right, so what are you going to write about? So here's my my hypothetical, not hypothetical, sample essay. So I did a quick search. I found this is off of Education Week's website. This is an opinion piece. They call it commentary. So it's going to include the author's opinions. This particular author, his name is David Sannon. He's an assistant principal for an elementary school in Florida, and this was published back in 2017. So historically, this would have been after Black Lives Matter as a movement has started, talking about race, but it's before George Floyd and those incidents that happened during 2020, Breonna Taylor and everyone else. So it's not referencing those specific situations. All right, so I took it, I made it easy to read for my students, put in a citation for it so that they have access to that. Now that you've read the writing prompt, what do you need to do next? Well, you need to take notes as you read. So I came up with some questions that you might want to think about, and no matter what essay it is that you're reading, These are good things to be thinking about. So, what is the author's thesis statement? This is their main idea. This is the point that they're trying to make by writing their essay. Then, what other claims do they make? Then, your response piece, do you agree with the author or do you disagree? Make sure that you explain why, because we don't just say our opinions, we justify them by explaining them. Then we can talk about how this made you feel. What was your emotional response to the text? This is also relevant. And then what sort of quotes or summaries or paraphrases from the text might you want to use? This is where you're going to just put some important things down. And of course, during the note-taking process, you want to make sure you're citing so that you don't have to go back later and do extra work by finding what page something came from or something like that. So, really quick, simple worksheet. All right, once you've done that, you've read through the essay, you've taken some notes. Now it's time to start figuring out what your paper is going to be. So, don't forget, look back at your writing prompt, make sure you know what you're being asked to do, and then start coming up with some ideas. I could write about this. I could write about this. This could look like a list. Maybe it's in a bullet point list. Maybe it's just ideas. Maybe you free write and you come up with some ideas. Any of those things are fine, but make sure before you go any further, you're being deliberate in coming up with ideas at this point in the process. All right, once you've done that, you're probably ready to start outlining. Now, I make this point with my students, and I want to make it with you as well. I like to separate brainstorming from outlining as two different processes because they're trying to accomplish two different things. Brainstorming is about generating and coming up with ideas that will help you meet your writing prompt. An outline is when you start to choose which ideas you're actually going to use and you're going to put them in order. So, how do we do that? Well, we need to figure out what our main point is because the whole paper is going to center around that. This is going to help you narrow down which ideas you're going to include. So here's a simple formula. You state the topic, you make a comment about it. In David Sannon's essay, this is not just another essay. I think I typed this wrong. Not just another essay about race. There we go. Then you could say what your comment is about it. So it's a really simple structure that sets you up to make a really clear statement about something, preferably debatable. Otherwise, what's the point of trying to explain it? It's a fact. All right. Here is a sample outline you could use for something like this. Introduce what the text is that you're basing it off of through some sort of summary. Then state your thesis, which is going to include your thoughts and feelings about it, because this is a reader response essay. Then, really simply, you're going to take it point by point. All right, Sannon says this. This could be a place where you could cite. And then, what do you think about that? And then you explain it. Then, Sannon also says this. What do you think about that? Sannon also finally says this, and what do you think about it? So it's a really simple structure. You're picking out 3 different ideas that you're going to dig deeper into. Now remember, back when you're taking your notes, you were coming up with this. What's the thesis statement? What are some claims? How do you respond to it? Do you agree, disagree? So if you took notes, it's going to help you to put it into a structure when you get to your outline. I hope that makes sense. All right, and a good way to finish any sort of argumentative essay where you're trying to make a point and explain it is you start your conclusion by stating, again, what your thesis is, and then kind of summarizing how you've proved that throughout your paper. So, if you've gone through and you've put in all the work to come up with the details, the specific details, then you're probably ready to write your draft, and then you're ready to go. Now, my students, I'm not asking you to write a polished essay at this point. I'm just asking you to go through this process of reading, taking notes, brainstorming, outlining, and writing a draft. For everybody else there on the internet, I hope that you see that this could be a good structure for you to do your own reader response essays. Maybe it's something that your teachers ask you to do. Obviously, if you have a very specific writing prompt, that make sure you're following that, you're reading that, and what you're being asked to do may vary from what my specific guidelines are. As always ask your teacher for clarification if you aren't sure what to do. For my students, ask me questions. And if you just want some ideas on how to do a reader response essay, I have another video where I talk about that, but I hope that this structure is beneficial to you. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Dr. Jacob Larson. This has been Read, Write, and Cite, and I'll see you in the next video.